You are training your heart to be mediocre. Right now, today, every single easy run you drag out at the same tired pace. Every time you go out the door and just run, you're not building a bigger engine. You're just getting really, really good at being average. And I know that stings, but stick with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you why almost everyone chasing a bigger VO2 max is doing it completely backwards, and how you can actually move the needle before August. Not in some vague, someday, trust the process way. In a way you can literally schedule this week. Let's talk like adults for a second. You've heard the term VO2 max thrown around by every running influencer with a chest strap and a ring light. It sounds sciencey, it sounds impressive, and most people treat it like it's some mystical number handed down at birth. And look, there's truth buried in that. Genetics do set a ceiling. Some of that number is not yours to control. It's your parents' fault. Blame them at Thanksgiving. But here's what nobody tells you on the internet. The ceiling is way higher than where most recreational runners are actually living. Most of you aren't anywhere close to your genetic limit. You're not maxed out. You're just undertrained in the one specific way that actually moves this number, and overtrained in the one way that doesn't. So what actually is VO2 max? In plain English, no lab coat required. It's the maximum amount of oxygen your body can pull in, ship through your blood, and burn for fuel while you're working as hard as you possibly can. Bigger number, bigger engine. More oxygen delivered to the muscles, more fuel burned, faster pace sustained before you blow up. That's it. It's not magic. It's plumbing and combustion. Here's the part that's going to make some of you uncomfortable. Most runners think the way to raise this number is to run more. Just pile on more easy miles, log more time on your feet, grind out more Sunday-long runs at conversational pace, and eventually the engine gets bigger. And sure, that helps a little, especially if you're brand new to running. But if you've been running for a while and your easy pace has basically flatlined for the last year, more of the same is not the answer. You are pouring water into a bucket that's already full. Here's your reality check, and this one's not an opinion. This is published research you can go look up yourself. A study out of the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, led by exercise physiologist Jan Helgerud, took a group of already well-trained distance runners, people who were not beginners, people who had a training base, and had them do a very specific interval protocol. 4 minutes hard, running at roughly 90 to 95% of max heart rate, then 3 minutes of easy jogging to recover, repeated 4 times, twice a week, 8 weeks. That's it. 2 sessions a week for 8 weeks. And these trained runners, who already had a solid aerobic engine, saw VO2 max improve by about 7%. 7% in trained athletes in 8 weeks, from 2 sessions a week. If you know anything about exercise physiology, you know that number is enormous for a population that's already fit. Untrained people can improve VO2 max more easily because they're starting from nothing. Trained runners squeezing out 7% from a short, structured protocol. That's the kind of result that should make you stop and ask why you're not doing this already. So why isn't everyone doing 4x4s twice a week and calling it a day? Because it's uncomfortable. Because 90 to 95% of max heart rate for 4 straight minutes feels like your lungs are trying to escape your ribcage. Because it's genuinely hard to pace correctly if you've never done it before. And because most runners would rather run an extra easy 6 miles where they can chat with a podcast in their ears than suffer through 4 rounds of controlled misery. I get it. Comfortable is comfortable. But comfortable doesn't build a bigger engine. Comfortable maintains the engine you already have. Now here's a contradiction that trips people up constantly. If hard intervals work this well, shouldn't you just do them every single day? Go hard, go often, right? Wrong. Dead wrong, actually. And this is where a lot of ambitious runners sabotage themselves without realizing it. There's another well-documented piece of research, this one associated with exercise scientist Steven Sealer, looking at how elite endurance athletes across sports actually structure their training. And what shows up again and again is something called polarized training. Roughly 80% of training volume done at genuinely easy, almost boringly easy effort. and only around 20% done at that hard, uncomfortable VO2 max building intensity. Not 50-50, not medium hard most days. 80% easy, 20% brutal. The magic isn't in doing hard work constantly. The magic is in doing easy work easy enough that your hard work can actually be hard. If your easy runs are secretly medium effort because your ego won't let you slow down, you're stealing the intensity you need from your interval days, and you're also never letting your body recover enough to adapt. You end up in this gray zone, not easy enough to recover, not hard enough to force real adaptation, stuck forever. That's where most recreational runners live their entire running lives without knowing it. So let's actually build something useful out of this, instead of just complaining about what's wrong with everybody's training, because I could do that for another 20 minutes, and it wouldn't move your VO2 max one single point. Here's the practical version, the one you can put on your calendar this week, without needing a lab, a coach, or a 4-figure GPS watch. Twice a week, you're going to do a session built around that 4 minutes hard, 3 minutes easy structure. 4 to 5 reps of 4 minutes at an effort where talking is basically impossible, where you could maybe grunt out 2 or 3 words if your life depended on it, followed by 3 minutes of genuinely easy jogging or even walking if you need it. Not jogging that's secretly still fast because you're impatient. Actually easy. Full recovery-minded effort. Repeat that 4 to 5 times. That whole session, warm-up and cool-down included, is under an hour, twice a week. The other days, and this is the part people skip because it feels like cheating, are supposed to be boringly, almost embarrassingly easy. If someone could run next to you and hold a full conversation without you gasping, you're doing it right. If you can't talk, you're too fast, and you're stealing intensity from the 2 days that actually matter. That's the whole system. It's not complicated. It's not secret. It's published. It's repeatable. And it's sitting right there in exercise science journals that most runners have simply never opened. Now here's where it gets personal, because knowing the protocol and actually doing it are two completely different animals. I've watched runners nod along to exactly what I just told you, write it down, screenshot it, and then go right back to running the same comfortable 5 miles at the same comfortable pace the very next morning. Why? Because the 4-minute interval is scary. Because slowing down on your easy days feels like admitting defeat, like you're getting worse instead of better. There's an ego problem buried in all of this, and nobody wants to talk about it because it's not as satisfying as talking about heart rate zones. You associate slow with weak. You associate hard breathing with progress happening right now, in real time, visible and provable. Slow, quiet, easy running doesn't give you that same hit. It doesn't feel like something is happening, but something is happening. Recovery is happening. Mitochondrial adaptation is happening. Your body is quietly getting ready to survive the next brutal session, so it can actually adapt from it instead of breaking down from it. Let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself for a second. When was the last time you ran an easy run that was actually easy? Not easy for me. Not easy compared to my tempo pace. Actually, genuinely, could hold a full conversation easy. If you can't remember, that's not a coincidence. That's your answer right there. That's why your VO2 max has been sitting in the same zip code for the last 18 months, while you keep grinding out the same mediocre miles, hoping something changes through sheer stubbornness. Here's another number that might rearrange how you think about pacing those hard reps. During that 4-minute interval, you're not sprinting. I want to be really clear about that because people hear 90 to 95% of max heart rate, and they picture an all-out sprint, lungs exploding in the first 30 seconds, completely gassed by minute 2. That's wrong, and it's actually counterproductive. If you go out too hard in the first minute, your heart rate spikes, but your legs die before you accumulate enough time at that high-intensity zone to actually trigger the adaptation you're after. The real skill, the thing that separates runners who get results from this protocol and runners who just suffer and get nothing, is pacing it, so you build into that zone across the first minute or so and then hold it, uncomfortable but sustainable, for the remaining 3. It's controlled suffering, not chaos. Chaos burns you out by rep 2, and you spend the rest of the session limping through junk miles that don't build anything. And here's a cliffhanger for you, because there's a mistake sitting right in the middle of this protocol that wrecks it for almost everyone who tries it without knowing this one detail, and I'm not going to bury it in a footnote. The recovery interval, that 3 minutes of easy jogging between hard reps, is not a throwaway. People treat it like a break, like it doesn't matter what you do during it, so they either stop completely and stand there gasping, or they keep jogging way too fast because they're impatient to get back to the real work. Both of those choices quietly sabotage the whole session. Stop completely and your heart rate crashes too far, and you waste the first minute of your next rep just getting back into the zone instead of actually working in it. Jog too fast during recovery, and you never actually clear enough of the metabolic stress to hit that 90 to 95% zone properly on your next rep. So reps 3 and 4 end up weaker than rep 1, and you leave adaptation on the table without even realizing it. The recovery jog is part of the workout. It's not a break from the workout. Get that wrong, and you can do this protocol for 8 weeks and get a fraction of that 7% improvement. And then you'll be out there telling people intervals don't work, when really, you just never learned to run the boring 3 minutes as intentionally as the hard 4. Let's talk about something else people get wrong, because this is where the real aha moment usually happens for most runners I've worked with. People assume that because VO2 max is about oxygen delivery, the fix has to be about the lungs. Breathe better, breathe bigger, buy a breathing trainer, all of it. And breathing mechanics matter, don't get me wrong, that's a conversation for another day. But your lungs are almost never the actual bottleneck in a healthy adult runner. Your lungs can process way more oxygen than your heart and blood vessels can actually deliver to working muscle. The bottleneck is cardiac output, how much blood your heart can pump per beat, and how efficiently your muscles can extract and use the oxygen once it arrives. Those 4-minute intervals are specifically brutal enough to stress your heart's stroke volume, forcing it to get better at pumping more blood per beat, and to stress the muscle-level machinery that actually uses the oxygen once it gets there. That's the actual mechanism. That's why the protocol works, and it's why just breathing deeper on your easy runs was never going to move this number, no matter how many videos told you otherwise. So here's where this all lands, and this is the moment I want you to actually sit with, not just nod at and forget by the time you finish tying your shoes tomorrow morning. You do not need more miles. You do not need a new pair of shoes, a new watch, a new supplement stack, or a 12-week plan you found on some forum. You need 2 specific uncomfortable sessions a week, paced correctly, with recovery jogs that are actually intentional, sitting inside a week where the rest of your running is slow enough that it almost feels like you're not training at all. That contrast, that gap between genuinely easy and genuinely hard, is the entire engine behind the 7% number I gave you earlier. Runners who blur that line, who run everything at the same medium effort, are the ones stuck in the exact same fitness for years. The runners who separate hard from easy, who respect both ends of that spectrum instead of living in the mushy middle, are the ones who walk into August with a different engine than they had in June. Think about your next run, not next month, your literal next run. Are you going to go out there and do the same comfortable medium effort you've done for the last however many months, telling yourself it's building something, when deep down you already know it's just maintaining what you've got? Or are you going to actually commit to one end of the spectrum or the other? Genuinely easy, conversation pace easy, so your legs are fresh and ready for the day you go hard. Or genuinely hard, 4 minutes at a pace that scares you a little, followed by 3 minutes you actually respect instead of rush through. That decision, made twice a week starting now, is the difference between staring at the same VO2 max number in August that you're staring at today, or walking into fall with an engine that actually got bigger. The science isn't hiding from you. It's published. It's been replicated. It's sitting there waiting for you to stop overthinking it and just run the protocol. And that 7% number I gave you, from trained runners in 8 weeks, from 2 sessions a week, That's not even close to the ceiling of what's possible when you stack the right kind of session on top of it. There's a specific version of this workout, done a slightly different way, twice a week, that pushes adaptation even further. And it's the one thing almost nobody in the recreational running world is doing correctly. That's exactly what we're breaking down next time, so you're not left guessing. If this hit home, do me a favor and hit subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I actually read every single one. Share this with the running buddy who's been stuck at the same pace for a year and won't admit it. And if you want the full structured plan, the exact sessions laid out week by week, membership access is linked right in the pinned comment below. See you in the next one.